they should be able to find us over here. The map markers are on, so at the very worst they can walk if they have to. But thank you for being on time, guys. Next, we're going to need to go over to the crate that says CSW, that stands for Crew Served Weapons, and we're going to be getting the range tables for the 60mm, 81mm, and 82mm mortars. And you can see that now. If you scroll down, it should be toward the middle of the list. Or actually towards the bottom, it'll say M224 60mm range cables, M252 81mm range cables, and the one up above, the 2B14 82mm range cables. So you should have one of each of those. Okay, when everyone's ready, come and gather on me. All right, so now that that stuff's out of the way, let's get on with the course. So you guys might be asking yourselves, Bob, why would you ever want to use a mortar in the game ArmA? And there's several reasons, but the foremost being that it is a force multiplier. It's a big, powerful tool that enhances the firepower of any size force. We have three basic mortars that we're going to be talking about today. We have the 60mm mortar, we have the 81mm mortar, and the 82mm mortar. The 82mm mortar is the Russian mortar. You can see it behind me on the far left, and the other two are the US or Western style mortars, one small one and one big one. We'll be talking about their purpose, how to use them, and how to communicate and control fire missions, and basically implement how mortars are implemented in the game ArmA. So it's pretty, again, if you guys have any questions at any time, just let me know. You can either like stand up and salute or something. That'd be a good way to let me know without interrupting. Things like that. Feel free to just interrupt too, that's fine. So the weapons systems, like I said, there's three different kinds of mortars. There's two big ones and a little one. The big ones have a pretty long range. They're effective out to 4 or 5 kilometers. I think that even 6 kilometers for the 81mm mortar. The 60mm mortar on the right behind me is it's a little guy. It can shoot out to about 3 kilometers. But with all the mortar systems, the farther out that you shoot, the less accurate you're going to be, just because of the range and kind of flight. They're pretty capable. They can fire a multitude of round types, everything from high explosives to white phosphorus to illumination. Those are the three types that are modeled in ArmA. So it's not like artillery where you have a million different types of rounds that you have to figure out how to use with complicated timing and fuses and primers and stuff. Mortars are real simple the way that they're modeled now. It's possible that they may change in the future, and we'll have to update our training, but because in real life you have to use aiming posts, and it takes a lot more work than sort of the simple way that they're built in right now. But that is a nice thing too. They are pretty simple, so you can pretty easily get the hang of it, and I expect you guys to be able to pick up on them pretty quickly and be pretty effective with them. These are long-range weapon systems, so they can be used either in line of sight mode, where you're firing at something that you can see, or they can be used in non-line of sight mode, where you're firing at something that's not visible to you. But in either case, it's important to have somebody who can see where the rounds are hitting relative to the target and help you adjust your fire. Either that's someone on the mortar team themselves or a forward observer, and then obviously you don't want to be shooting at something and not know whether you're hitting it or not, or how you might need to adjust. So is there anyone here, and it's fine if there is, but is there anyone here who would like a refresher on how to use the how to read grids on the map system in the game, how to find out where a grid is, how to find out your current position? It'd be a good refresher probably for everyone. Is there anyone who would like me to go over that?
Well, finding current position is sometimes hard.
Yeah, it can be pretty difficult, but we'll try and go over it real quickly here. So if y'all open up your maps, you can look and see there's a marker currently set on 057108. A couple of them there. Those are our current position. We're at the target range. If you have a GPS, you'd also see that the GPS on the map screen shows your grid coordinates. The grids are read as an easting and then a northing, so the numbers along the top of the map show your east-west position. The numbers along the left side, left and right sides show your grid coordinates in north and south direction. So we are in grid 057108.
I don't see those marks.
Marker should be on. Let me try again here.
What, the marks for the target range? I see them.
Are there marks? There should be marks for units too.
I see the 1-1 Bravo and 1-1 Alpha in the target range, but I don't see anything beyond that.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Those were the marks I was referring to, the 1-1 Alpha and 1-1 Bravo marks.
Okay.
So those show our current position right now. Okay, so like I discussed before, there are some game limitations and considerations to think about. We don't have to prep rounds in ArmA. We don't have to set up a specific fuse type. For the three types of rounds, the high explosive and white phosphorus rounds are set up with like a point detonate type fuse. On impact, they'll explode. The illumination rounds are set up to automatically detonate and provide illumination over the target area. So I'll discuss that a little bit more in detail in a few minutes. Mortars use direction is very important in mortars, like either in degrees or mils. There are two sort of methods for determining a bearing to a target. So if everyone opens up their compass with the K key, it should be the default. You can see that most of you are looking to the east right now. And the numbers on the very outside, the numbers like 14, 15, 16 that you guys see are on the outside of the compass. Those are mils. And a mil is basically a circle divided into 6,400 different segments. So each angle is 1/6400th of a circle. So it's very similar to degrees, which is just circle broken into 360 parts. So you want to be very clear when you're talking within your game whether you're referring to a direction in degrees or mils, because that'll obviously can lead to some confusion if you guys aren't on the same page. The advantage to mils is that they're much more detailed. I mean, there's more a lower unit of subdivision, so you can be much more accurate with them. Instead of saying 10.5 degrees, you can say like 140 mils or whatever the equivalent is. Elevation is also very important in ranging. So if you guys open up your maps again, you can see there's little black numbers that will pop up at different, depending on how zoomed in you are. If you look at the hills directly to our south, maybe about 50 meters, you can see there's the numbers 2086 and 2085. Those are the peaks for that little hill to our south. So we know that elevation is 2,086 meters. Again, everything in the game is done in using the metric system. A meter is about a yard, just a little bit more. So you want to just remember that. So you will need to know not only your location, your target's location, but also your elevation and your target's elevation when you're calculating firing solution to get your mortar rounds to hit the target. Fortunately, on the range that we're using, the targets are going to be basically on the same plane as us. They might be a little bit lower, a little bit higher, but not enough to really influence the trajectory too much. So for this training, we're going to keep it simple and not focus too much on elevation, but we'll discuss how that is, how that can play into it. And you might also be asking yourselves, Bob, how does this shit work in theory? Like I described before, there are two basic roles. There's a direct fire role and an indirect fire role. And you need someone to observe the effects of the fires either way. So the first step in the sequence of events for a fire mission is called. Basically, somebody needs mortar support, whether it be like a commander or a squad leader. Somebody needs fire support. So they'll call in a fire mission, and they'll relay what location the rounds need to be targeted at, what the target is, what specific rounds are necessary. If there's maybe a dug-in infantry, they might call for white phosphorus, which could be more effective than high explosives, perhaps. And the next step is that the fire mission needs to be calculated. So somebody needs to find out how to get the rounds from the mortar location through the air, however far to the enemy location, and whether it's going to be a high angle, low angle shot, and what type of ammo to use, what charge to use, those types of things. We'll cover that a little bit. Then the fire mission needs to be communicated. So the person who calculated the fire mission needs to tell the mortar crew what to plot for elevation and direction. And finally, someone needs to be the fire mission needs to be fired, and then after rounds impact needs to be assessed and any adjustments made after that. So there's several different types of control that can be used when fire missions are called in. The most common that you'll see in the game is a grid fire mission, and that means that the person who's calling in the fire mission requests for rounds on a certain target grid. So going back to what we discussed before on the map, they'll ask for rounds at a certain position. If they're calling in a fire on our position, they could use the 6-digit grid 057108, and that would be the location that they want the rounds. They could also call for fires using the polar method, and that's basically from a given point. You can request fires on the basis of where you are. So if you don't know where the mortars are and you don't know the grid of your target, but you do know where you are, you can say, we need a fire mission polar, and then you'll give the bearing to the target and the suspected distance to the target. So from here, if we wanted to target something to the south, say maybe this red target's a little over 100 meters away, we could call in a fire mission polar from our current location, 180 degrees, distance 100 meters. And that would give the mortar, or the fire direction center enough information to be able to calculate a solution and relay that to the mortars. The third type of fire mission is it's a shift from a known point. So it's basically it's very similar to polar, except it's it's relative, not from your position, but from someone else's position. So if we looked, say to the buildings at about 100 degrees out there, if that was a known point, let's call it known point Charlie, you could call for a mission 100 years south if you saw a target at 100 meters south of that position. So in any case, those missions tend to be more difficult to calculate. They take more time. So the most common and most favored method is the grid fire mission. In a mortar fire team, there are 3 different roles. There's the team leader, the gunner, and assistant gunner. And oftentimes in the missions that we play, there's no dedicated fire direction center. So the mortar team has to be the ones calculating the fire solutions. And this usually ends up being the team lead, although the gunner and assistant gunner can certainly help, and it's usually better if they do. It never hurts to have people double checking your calculations. So again, they'll review the different elements of a fire mission. The observer, whoever it is, will identify themselves. There'll be a warning order. Target location and description will be given, along with the method of engagement and method of fire and control. So it can be kind of, in real life, it can be a very long process. So we usually try and abbreviate it as much as practical in the game to where the mortars get their grid and are basically ready to start firing pretty quickly. So, any questions so far?
I've got a question. What's the warning order?
The warning order is just the, it's basically like giving the mortar crew a heads up, saying, hey, we need a fire mission. It's either, a priority mission, immediate, like, we need to have this shit done now, or it could be a pre-planned fire mission saying, hey, you guys, we're going to need a fire mission here in 10 minutes or something.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so the next, you might be asking yourself, okay, how does this actually get done in practice? We're out here in game in ArmA. How do we actually get rounds plotted and fired? And the first, I guess, step is to select a mortar pit location if there isn't one already set up for you in the map. So if you guys have have the mortar equipment but it hasn't been set up yet, the first choice is obviously where do you set it up? And there are several considerations that you want to make when choosing a firing location. You want to consider, first of all, how close you are to the targets. Are the probable enemy targets going to be within your range? So if they're not within that 3 to 6 kilometer window, you're going to need to pack everything up and move closer. You can also get more range by going higher in elevation, but again, if you're shooting from a valley, it's harder to get out of there or to shoot as far than if you're shooting from a mountaintop. You want to consider any available concealment, kind of keep your position hidden. Any cover, if it's available, is useful. Once the mortar team gets involved in shooting fire missions, they can sort of get tunnel vision and not see enemies, so they can be vulnerable to ambush on occasion, but hopefully they should be behind the enemy, behind friendly lines, so that's not really a concern. But again, it's good to have some sort of cover if available for the mortar pit. You should also consider communications when you're selecting a firing location. You need to be in touch probably with an observer. A lot of times you want to make sure that you have good radio signal from where you're at. You also want to make sure that if you guys are the ones supposed to be observing and making adjustments to the fire missions, that you'll be able to see the effects of your rounds impacting. So especially for the 60mm mortar, which is employed as sort of a squad support role, you want to be able to see where your rounds are impacting, probably because there won't be anyone else to observe that. So the steps are setting up the mortars. You want to cut the grass if available, if that's an option, using the ACE interaction menu, right around where the mortar base plate is going to go. So and the important thing about that is that you don't want to put down the base plate and then not be able to find it again. The next step is to put down the base plate. We are going to be getting some out of the CSW box behind us. Each mortar has its own base plate that they're sort of matched up. Big mortar has a big base plate, little mortar has a little base plate. So you want to make sure you have the right base plate for the mortar system that you're using. Then place that using the ACE interaction menu. Once the base plate has been placed, you can use the ACE interaction menu on it to then mount the mortar to the base plate. So I've already done that out here for three of the different mortar systems, and let's walk over there and have a look at them right now. Okay. We're all here. Its first mortar system is the 2B14. It's a Russian large 82mm mortar. It has a range of about 6 kilometers, like I mentioned before. I think a lot of times we'll give it to the insurgents if it's sort of like local or OPFOR need a mortar system. It's pretty powerful, it's also very heavy because it's a large mortar system, so you're going to need several people to pack it and maybe a vehicle to carry all the ammo for it, because again, the larger the mortar we have, the heavier the ammo is. Our next mortar system that we have is the 81 millimeter U.S. mortar. It's the M252. Its maximum range is about 6 kilometers. The minimum range for all these mortars, by the way, is about 100 meters. So if you have enemies that are that close to you, it's better just to get off the gun and start returning small arms fire, because you're not going to be able to hit them if they're any closer than that. The exception being the third and final mortar over here, the little guy, the US M224 60 millimeter mortar, which is has a minimum range of 50 meters. So again, these are the 3 mortar systems that we're going to be using. I've deposited some rounds behind each one. If you guys are going to practice setting up more mortars, let's keep them on the same line, either to the north or south.
What the fuck?
Woohoo!
Who did that?
Ah, not again.
Who threw the grenade? Who threw the grenade?
Who threw the fucking grenade?
I think that might have been me.
Oh my god. Yo, I see the grenade by the mortar and I'm like, oh fuck.
Guys, just put your grenades in your packs right now. Go into your gear and pack up your fucking grenades.
That's going in the AAR.
Well,
Just put
okay.
it back in the boxes. You don't need
It,
it.
okay, it's not the end of the world. Let's just regroup and we'll continue.
Oh man, Huska just died on me, bro.
Just let dead people respawn, it'll be quicker.
Yeah, it won't take long. It'll just be about a minute here.
How do we hide the body?
I don't think there's a hiding body script on this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get rid of my grenades now.
Alright, they're disappearing on their own. Good.
Yeah.
Alright, I have 4 grenades in my pack.
Okay, guys.
Got me working.
Bob, I've got a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What are the optimal ranges for the different mortars? I mean, you're not always shooting at maximum range because it's very inaccurate.
That's very true. That's a good point. Yeah, you don't want to always be shooting at the extent of the mortar's range. Usually targets within 2 kilometers, 2 or 3 kilometers are going to be, you're going to have a pretty good effect on target. By that range, you can be shooting on medium charge and not have very much dispersion on the rounds. Dispersion, of course, refers to the natural deviation in the mortar rounds as they're in flight. So, for instance, if I'm shooting at a target and I have the exact solution calculated, I can have my rounds impact in a certain kind of radius around that target due to natural variations in the game that are modeled. Things like wind, things like variances in the precision of how the rounds were manufactured, maybe vibrations, little deviations in the mortar itself. All those kind of things can affect it. So there's going to be some natural kind of float there, which is why in a lot of fire missions you'll fire several rounds, which will obviously impact in a range around the target. And it's also important sometimes if you're trying to get a fire mission to have a good effect over a certain area, that you do add a little bit of elevation or change in direction to accomplish that, because a common thing that I've seen in game is people will calculate a firing solution and then they'll fire 3 or 4 rounds on that exact solution, and you have the rounds basically at short range hitting right on top of one another when you wanted them to cover out maybe cover 100-meter line or something. So that's another thing to think about is if you're at close range, the dispersion will be smaller than if you're at long range. And I think at at the 6 kilometer limit of the M80, sorry, the T52 mortar, the dispersion is only about 50 meters in the game. So it's not a huge dispersion even at the maximum range. But you will want to add a little bit of correction to the T8. So you'll notice when you do get in these mortar systems that on this map the artillery computer has been enabled. Obviously that's not going to be the case in many missions, but it can be useful for double checking a firing solution. You can use the artillery computer to basically have the game calculate all that stuff for you, and you can use that to check your map basically. But when you get in the mortar system, there will be an option to bring up the T and E. And T and E stands for transverse and elevation, which are the two factors, direction and elevation of the mortar. So elevation is up, down, traverse is side to side. And those two numbers will appear on the top left of your screen, and I think they're in mils. They're both in mils and degrees, and you want to make sure that you obviously understand which one you're looking at. You can double check that against your compass if you're not sure. Oh, and then I guess to calculate the elevation that you want, you'll be using the range tables that we all picked up over at the CSW crate. And to open up your range tables, you use the ACE self-interact key, and it'll say equipment player and give you the range tables that you currently have open. So if you look at the M224 range tables, which you should have picked up, it'll appear as a white box showing the round type on top, and then close, medium, far, the charge type as a drop-down menu on the top. Is there anyone who doesn't see that? Okay, go ahead, Adam.
I got a question. So you were saying earlier about the whole artillery computer?
Yes.
Like, if we don't have an artillery computer, isn't there like a method you can use binoculars and figure out like range and shit like that?
That's correct, yes, and that's what I was saying. The artillery computer is provided in this training mission for kind of like easy way to double check your work, like for doing your calculations. But in all the missions that we play, it's basically been taken out so that because it's not a realistic thing for most missions, and when it is, it's implemented differently. So there are times when you may have a ballistic computer to assist you, but for the majority of games or missions, you won't. So I will. This is sort of what I'm starting to get into right now is determining what numbers basically to punch into the mortar, like how much to elevate it to hit a target at a certain range.
Oh, okay.
So if we open up our range tables, is there anyone who hasn't been able to open up the range table? Okay, so we should all have that open now. So again, we're looking at the 60 millimeter mortar. Let's look at high explosive on close charge. The first column is the range to the target in meters. So if we're shooting at a target 200 meters away, we'll need to elevate the mortar to 1,139 mils, which is the elevation number, assuming that the target is on the same vertical plane, rather the same height that we are. So if the mortar, we're playing on a very flat map, and the target's 200 meters away, the elevation needs to be 1,139 meters. The time flight for that round, when we fire it, will be just over 9 seconds. So that's something that's going to be important to, if you're calling in a fire mission and you need the observer to know to be watching for the round, you call that in, you call splash 5 minutes before, or sorry, 5 seconds, excuse me, 5 seconds before the round is going to impact on the grenade. Similarly, if the target is 250 meters, the elevation is going to be 894, time of flight of just 7.8 seconds. So what happens if the target's more than 250 meters away? We're going to need to change our charge type. So let's choose on the drop down, change from close to medium, and that'll open up kind of the next range between 250 meters and 1.25 kilometers. So for targets in that range, we can use medium charge. And you're probably asking, if you have a target at 250 meters, it looks like you have the option of choosing close or medium, because both of those round types, or both of those charges, can hit that range. So which one should you use? Well, it's probably going to be best if you use the close charge